Hello favorite people, today we're going to be reacting to me. Usually on this channel, as you guys know, we do the culture videos, but they're always about the UK, London, Britain, you know, all that. But today I decided why not see what you guys potentially think about me and other Americans. This video is called What the Rest of the World Thinks of Americans. I'm slightly scared, but also really excited. You guys asked my mom to make a channel, so she did. It's linked down below. Check out my second channel too. DM me any video requests that you have over on Instagram. Like this video so I know you enjoy it and I can do more in the future. And here we go into the mess that is Americans. Ugh.
Can someone tell me why Americans always leave the AC on, even if they go out all day? This question we saw last night posted on an online forum by a
I don't think everybody does that though. Because again, it does raise your electric bill, so if you're conscientious of how much your bills are, you would turn it off. Not everybody does that.
disgruntled hotel owner. What followed were reams of insults, generalizations, arguments, peppered with the odd, intelligent, and temperate comment. That's par for the course online. But it's fortunate we saw that so soon before writing the show. We saw comments along the lines of, Americans are just arrogant and ignorant, as if 325.7 million people were molded into one monolithic entity.
That's
then
true.
We saw, I'm American, and I leave the AC on as long as I like. I pay for it. See?
And that, everyone, sums up the American ideology. I don't have to wear a mask, because I don't want to. And you're not going to make me. I pay for it so I can do what I want. Yeah. We're a very... what's the word? Where we feel like we are owed something or we have the right to do something just because we are who we are. I don't know what the term is, but we're very that. Which is good and bad.
People said they all think the world owes them something. What about the environment? Driving around in their big cars and SUVs, throwing out more trash than anyone, and pretending to care about environmental disasters.
Are we really the leader in pollution and, like, litter? Because there's always been a movement about not littering. In fact, you can get really big fines if you're caught littering. I don't know. I think it just depends what community you're in. Obviously, if you're in a big city, you're going to see a lot of littering. But, for instance, where I'm at, I have to drive all the way to Dallas to see a really big problem with littering. I don't think that one's true.
This went on and on, with people casting aspersions against an entire nation. Others, of course, weren't so bad, calling out people for having a very limited understanding of a country and its cultural and intellectual diversity. But can we make such generalizations? Could we argue that many Americans embrace their individuality and their right to do what they want? They paid for that darn AC, and they will darn well do what they want with it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there's elitism in American culture, but also, like, why wouldn't you be, not elite, but, like, demand your right to do whatever you want. It's your life. You are who you are. Why wouldn't you want that? You know what I mean? So I see both sides so far.
Fact is, we all sometimes are culpable of whittling down the world to a manageable size that fits within our sometimes uneducated preconceptions. We cannot say all Americans are this or that, but perhaps there might be underlying character traits to a culture, something data, evidence, or experience can provide us with. But
And another thing, a really big thing you have to remember whenever you make a generalization or talk about America is how diverse we are. There's not, aside from like white people, there's no one look for an American. There are black people, there are Hispanic, there are Middle Eastern, there's Asian. You know, so many different faces and colors to being an American, so many different languages. Though I think there is a group of people who would want you to believe that it's just white people who speak English. The basis of Americanism is, like, again, the land of the free. Anything is possible. Anyone is welcome. Well, that's not true anymore, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like, back in the day, the image of Americanism was, there was no image of it. It was everything. Anyone could be American.
Most of us don't rely on data or objective reasoning and rely instead on an image, a construction that we've created out of a wanton bias. Number 5. Arrogance. As we said, much of the world thinks Americans are arrogant. You don't have to look hard online to find this out. We hear that they like nothing more than to plant flags around their houses, and they go on and on about how great their country is, and by association that must mean how great
they are.
Even though they often didn't do that much to claim this superiority. As the American comedian Doug Stanhope once alluded, some flag wavers are like imperial hangers-on. Anyway, Some people say this is why Americans are often so loud, and don't worry, there are plenty of articles and forum questions asking why American voices tend to drown out others, say.
Huh. Okay, I don't really know much about the we speak really loud, but as for the arrogance, again, it's kind of just like, why wouldn't you be proud of who you are, where you come from? You know, every country has like a history of just doing bad stuff, whether it be imperialism, slavery, you know, genocide, whatever. Everyone around the world has a history of just being a tyrant. And I feel like not that we acknowledge that, but we embrace it in a way. Like, yeah, we did this, but we've become better since that. At least some of us do that anyway. We still have a huge issue with culture and like race and, you know, back and forth, but as for like being proud of who we are, I don't see a problem with that. My thinking of it is, if everyone hates you, there's a reason for that. It's either you're actually just annoying or everyone is kind of jealous. Now, that's not to say everyone in the world is jealous of Americans, but I feel like we don't bother anyone except be loud, be proud, be happy, and that bothers people. I don't know.
Abroad. We might ask if this has anything to do with that sense of patriotism.
The great country, the United States. Ugh.
We're going on the trip of a lifetime. Scotland.
Country, greatest, best in the world, no doubt, better than anyone else, and also the entitlement that comes from a place that espouses expressive individualism at all costs.
Okay, everyone should feel that way though. Everyone should be proud of where they come from, feel like you're the best, feel like you're not better than other people, but if there was a competition, you would measure up. There's nothing wrong with being proud or patriotic. At least that's what we've been taught, and I actually kind of believe that. You should be proud of where you come from.
Loud American is a much better known phrase than the great piece of literature called the Quiet American. Forums are full of people talking about these loud people.
Is this really a thing?
Expatiating, bragging, complaining, extolling the merits of good old America, and forcing some poor European into a quiet internal violence, wondering all the time, do they not realize they're being obnoxious? Where's the self-awareness? Hell yes, go America. Now, this isn't of course true for all Americans. It's a stereotype, but it exists. If you don't...
No, I think with stereotypes, there's always some truth behind them. I believe most Americans, whether you be a born citizen or an immigrant, you're automatically, I don't know what it is, but you automatically have so much patriotism and you're proud to be here. You want to announce that you're an American, you know, whatever, USA, USA. And again, I don't think there's a problem with that. Does that make us... being proud of where you're from and your culture doesn't make you arrogant. Y'all let me know your thoughts. I don't think being proud of being an American or, you know, our patriotism or nationalism is a problem. Why should that bother you? That we're proud to be an American. Yeah, there's so many issues with us going on right now, and I think our government is a mess. But at the end of the day, I'm still proud to be an American. I can acknowledge the faults of our culture and country and still love being an American. Let me know your thoughts.
Leave us, check it out for yourself. You could be reading for a year, even though it's fantastically unrealistic and arrogant to think the stereotype is true for all people in the
I keep
USA.
using the word arrogant.
What we hope to do is point out such stereotypes, and we can discuss them after the show. Now, on to the next. Number 4, ignorance. All countries attempt to imbue a sense of nationalism in their people. It's how they get soldiers to fight wars, to believe in the country, to create a sense of belonging and cooperation. But
now this is where I don't really match with other Americans. I could never give up my life for this freaking country. I'm sorry. I could never fight for this country. I could never go to war for this country. Absolutely not. Hello? People who enslaved my people, and there's people in this country still wish I were enslaved. Why the heck would I die for them? But anyways, he said that like the patriotism and everything is what leads to the nationalism, which encourages people to fight for the country. I agree with that, but I feel like at the same time there's a cutoff point. Like, yeah, I'm proud to be an American, but again, would I die for this country? No.
nation's attempts to foster ignorance in people, well, you might have read some critics saying the American school system is purposely trying to dumb down its citizens. They want workers, robots, not creative, critical, skeptical kids that might ask too many questions.
Really? I've never actually thought of it that way. Like, Because let's be honest, the American education system is one of the worst in America, and I feel like y'all can see that from how much I lack in knowledge about the rest of the world from my reactions. But did I ever consider that we're taught the way we are to keep us in a little box and not really question or consider the rest of the world? I don't know. Why would you purposefully, though, dumb down your population? Not dumb us down, but keep us ignorant. Like, I didn't even know there were mountains in Italy. And that's because the extent of my geography class was just labeling a map, you know? So it's not that I'm ignorant or dumb. It's just the focus of my education was never about the rest of the world. It was about America, American history, how I can benefit America. You know, the education says F the rest of the world. You need to learn about us and how you can benefit the rest of us for your life, you know? So I don't know what the purpose of that is, actually.
The idiocracy. We're not saying this is true. It's a criticism leveled by some people. But we can say that much of the world thinks Americans are ignorant. Well, to be frank, most of those shows pointing out American ignorance regarding their own nation are made on home turf. But you'll find people outside the USA saying things like, they don't know anything about history, not even their own. They believe only in their own heroic narrative and think the French Revolution is a roller coaster.
But that's the thing also. We only believe... That is so true, though, because when I have to reference slavery because that's like the biggest negative about our history. It's never taught from a black standpoint. It's always whitewashed. You never hear about the actual details and how gruesome slavery was. It's like the Disney version of our history. That's what we're taught. And it's always made to seem way more positive than it actually was in all aspects, not just slavery, but in any form of history, it's always glazed over or given in a PG sort of encompassment. So you never actually get the real truth about history for ourselves. And how can you expect to be taught about the rest of the world if you can't even get the actual history of your own place? So, yeah.
Told Americans are so insular, they are out of their depth when they walk out of the front door. But is any of this true? Listen to this. There's a cult of ignorance in the United States, and there always has been. The strain of anti-intellectualism has been a constant thread winding its way through our political and cultural life.
I feel like there's a mix of people who think they know everything and those who actually want to know everything. Those who go out of their way to figure out what's going on, do research, learn about different cultures and people and ways of life. And then there's those who think they already know about it and don't need to do the research and form conclusions based off of that.
By the false notion that democracy means that my ignorance is just as good as your knowledge. Those words were spoken by the American scientist Isaac Asimov. But the fact that those words were his means there's a contradiction in terms. America is constantly ablaze with creative thinking. There is a daily conflagration of innovation.
And that again just goes with what I was saying. There's so many people here that you can't really just form one single opinion about Americans. Because when you say you don't like Americans, what does that even mean? There are millions of people here, so many different faces, cultures, belief systems. How can you say you don't like Americans? There's no one American.
Introversion, skepticism, groundbreaking scientific research, world-changing fiction, reasonable, intelligent discourse appearing in blogs, podcasts, etc. But it turns out a lot of people, including inside America and outside, believe a culture of ignorance is propagated there. Is there any data to support this? Yeah, there seems there is. The Big Think wrote a story in 2013 with the title, Why Are Americans So Ignorant? And indeed, within the article is a lot of compelling evidence that many, in some cases most Americans, know very little about how their own country works.
Okay, but how does not really understanding your country translate to not knowing the rest of the world? Like, for me, for example, I don't really react to a lot of American stuff because I react to UK culture because the UK is what interests me. But does that make me ignorant of America? I mean, I'm here every single day. I live here day to day. I experience American things. So, I don't know. How can you be ignorant of a place you live? Someone answer that.
And don't even ask about the rest of the world. Weak civics curricula, partisan propaganda, and misplaced priorities of the mainstream media all share some blame for American ignorance, the writer says. But we feel it goes deeper than that. We'll let you decide. Number 3, positiveness, and friendliness. We've really been bashing America, so now we'll look at a positive stereotype as equally untrue for all Americans. We must add, though, that when it comes to generalizations of countries, many people harbor a negative bias. How many of you have ever uttered the words, "Oh, I really don't like the English, the French, the Indian, the Chinese"?
That's
Just
stupid.
add your nation to the list. We recently saw a comment made by a young American who has gone to study in the UK. He couldn't wait to get out, saying the atmosphere for the most part was gray, unfriendly, and intimidating. Maybe he just went to the wrong place. But one might argue that
freaking, I was in London, everyone was talking to me, smiling at me, asking me how my trip was so far, giving me directions. The weather was a bit dull, but you have to just overcome that. Whenever I would be walking through the park and it's raining down on me and I need to get to the bus station, I wasn't like, "Oh, I hate this place, it's freaking raining all the time, blah, blah, blah." I was excited to go explore the city in the rain. You can't let your environment influence how you feel about a place.
Are in general more open and positive than Brits. We might remember what the dry, wry British celebrity intellectual Stephen Fry said about his trip to the US when he made a show about travel there. He said this sense of outgoing positivity he enjoyed, and he said it's something the Brits were missing.
Okay, so with our ignorance, with our loudness, with our, just all the annoying things about Americans, we're still happy. Ignorance is bliss, I guess.
In America, or at least many people are taught to think they can. While back in
You
Britain,
can
perhaps
do
the
it.
most downtrodden submit to the fact that life is hard, painful. Where's the beer? What some people call arrogance, Fry said, was partly American optimism, or what he said was a refusal to see oneself in a bad light.
Because remember, the founding of America is the American dream. You can't have sadness and pessimism with an American dream. The ideology of America is, if you work hard enough, you can achieve whatever you want, you can do whatever you want. It's all here, all the resources you need. Obviously, we know this isn't true, but all the resources you need are here. You just need to take them, do something with them, and you will prosper. That's the ideology. And if you're given that sort of ideology, how can you be mad or sad or whatever? Yeah.
If you go to an American bookshop, by far the biggest section is the self-help and improvement. He said people believe that life is refinable and improvable. That's how America works, he said. You adapt and you find ways to improve. You never submit. Hell yeah, he loves that about America. Take that in your British pipes and smoke it. We think we might add here that a lot of people have experienced this, and while harboring the stereotype that Americans are outgoing and confident, those same people might hold a counter-generalization that sometimes this positivity climax is a bit too hard. It jumps the shark. And then, within this transposition, it manifests as something deplorable to others. It turns into pride without substance, blind faith, a superiority complex that is bathed only in its own ignorance.
Okay, that's true. I'm the best, I can do whatever I want, I can achieve it because I am me. But there's no basis of showing that, because you're still where you've always been. I guess I can understand that.
Number 2, money. It's all about money.
It is.
If you've ever read critiques on Hollywood versus cinema, you'll find that Hollywood is said to be firstly, perhaps only, a money-making enterprise. European cinema, we're told, is more about the art. In an American film, often the happiest of all happiest endings is when they get away with the money. What else could matter? If you want to make a movie...
That's not even true. It depends what movie you're watching. I mean, obviously, if you're watching a movie at Wall Street, for example, or a heist movie, yeah, it's going to be about the money, but if you're watching a rom-com or a comedy or, I don't know, an action movie, it's not about the money. I think our culture is about the money, but our cinema is not necessarily. The playwriters aren't focusing on money.
Hollywood. First show bits of it to the most average consumers and ask what they think. Then make the film based on the results. Even if the movie might be greeted with intense dislike by more refined audiences, it's all about cash, goddammit. We won't...
Okay, I understand what he's saying now. He wasn't talking about the plots of the movies. He was talking about the box office itself, the entire business standpoint of it. But that's duh. If no one's going to watch your movie, this is what I apply to YouTube too. You guys have noticed probably, like, my new 80% versus 20%. Put 80% of the content you produce is what you know is going to benefit your channel, benefit your growth. People are going to engage with it, watch it, all that. And then the other 20% could be just random stuff that you enjoy. Won't necessarily do good when it comes to numbers, but you still like that content. So 80% versus 20%. That way you're giving your audience what you want, but also you get to implement a sort of content that you actually really enjoy. Same can be applied to, like you just said, movies. You're not going to make a whole movie, pay actors, make a whole cast, do the set and everything, if there's not going to be any return. If no one's going to watch your movie, why did you make it? That's a huge waste. And I believe that way of thinking. Why would you put out if you're not going to get back? That's just not feasible in our country. You can't do that. Like, if you expect to stay afloat or survive in this country, you have to be getting some return. That's just the basis of living in a capitalistic country.
Been long on this, but America didn't invent capitalism. It's evidently just
like
been
very
good at it. But at the same time, America embraces free speech, and critics of capitalism and neoliberalism abound in the country.
I feel like a lot of our citizens, though, don't understand what free speech actually is. You can't just go around and call me the N-word and expect not to get fired from your job. That's not your free speech being taken away. Free speech is whenever you speak somewhere that is, in fact, I don't even know, but I know that we don't understand free speech, the amendment.
America, the foundation of the United States, was built to have restrictions in place for if or when any behemoth gets out of control and gains too much power. We won't address the complications or merits of this today, but we will say that much of the world thinks America is overly money-centered, more than, say, focused on happiness gained from other means than merely being rich and having lots of things. Number 1, Americans are all fat.
Oh!
Some Europeans...
What? We're not, are we? Fat? I mean, we have obese people, but not everyone's fat. I think our diet is horrible, for the most part. Our health is not good. But then again, how can you blame us when we have to pay $5,000 for a freaking ambulance to the hospital? Of course, our health isn't our first priority, because if it was, we're going to be in debt.
And other citizens of the world like nothing more than to show their own superiority by constantly defaming Americans for their ingrained bad habits and slovenly TV-addicted fast food-related obesity.
That's another thing, though. It could be argued, though, the fact that we have so many fast foods and are able to even become obese is a privilege. Because in other countries, like, you can't even get a meal. There are populations who starve, are, what would you call it, malnourished. So isn't it better to be obese or overweight or whatever, have the possibility to even become so? I see both sides.
It's a fact that some part of America has a problem with eating, and this has led to what's called an obesity epidemic.
I overeat,
resulted in widespread
which is why I have this
health
jiggle now.
complications. Your average Asian might touch down in, say, Houston for the first time and think they discovered a land of giants. But America is not the fattest country in the world. It's around the 17th according to the WHO. It's the fattest Western nation, but a lot of other Western countries are not far behind in terms of obesity. Obesity crises are happening in the UK, New Zealand, Ireland, Australia, and many other nations. We can hardly say the junk food epidemic is an American affliction only.
And isn't it funny how we were able to monetize obesity? You see all these shows like 600-Pound Life, 1,000-Pound Sisters, My Strange Addiction, where it's binge eaters. So, oh God, that's not a good thing, though.
On the other hand, many Americans are fitness freaks. It's a fitness-conscious country as well as a nation of couch-bound sugar junkies.
I was also going to say, we shame fat people. It's not something that, for our population, we don't take pride in being obese or being fat. In fact, you're bullied for it, so,
Just look at popular podcasts such as The Joe Rogan Show, and you'll see that health, longevity, physical improvement is on the minds of many Americans.
Yeah.
You could even go as far to say that this new wave of health improvement is being led by an American avant-garde.
It's
But
about
yes,
elitism
the
still.
stereotype of fat America is hardly only imaginary. We could have added more to this list, but we feel if we're to debate these stereotypes in the comments, we might leave it here, as it could get confusing.
Yeah.
Do you think any of these stereotypes are true? Do you take a...
Okay. A lot of the stuff, again, I was kind of back and forth with, because, again, I see this stuff day to day. I freaking live here. So to say Americans are fat, Americans are ignorant, blah, 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 it's kind of like I can see what you're saying from an outsider perspective, but living here, I don't really understand that. And maybe I'm biased. I don't really know. Y'all give me your thoughts. Comment on everything that I said throughout the reaction. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.